My name is Miguel Herrera. I spent 8 years as a sergeant in the Mexican Army, involved in the most violent combat imaginable, the struggle against Sinaloa's drug gangs. I saw 23 of my teammates fall under my leadership. I had to neutralize 15 murderers in direct encounters. I participated in more than 100 anti-drug operations. And for all those years I ridiculed God. I spit on his name and stomped every religious symbol I came across. I was known as Sergeant Tay in my battalion. My men feared me more than they appreciated me. When one of them did the sign of the cross before a mission, I would exclaim at him, "Trust your gun, not ghosts." When we uncovered family altars with representations of the Virgin of Guadalupe, I either disregarded or smashed them out of scorn. But then, one dreadful day in the highlands of Culiacan, I was forced to kneel before the Grim Reaper and ask for assistance from the one creature I never imagined I'd listen to. What occurred next not only saved my life, but also reshaped my spirit in ways I still don't understand. This is the account of how the Virgin Mary helped a soldier who despised her in his worst hour. Let me express who I was before the Blessed Virgin chose to teach me something I'll never forget. I grew raised in Tepic, Nayarit, in a profoundly Catholic home. My mother, Dona Carmen Herrera, was a devoted follower of the Virgin of Guadalupe. Every morning she would get up at 5 a.m., us pray the rosary, and every evening, Mom would bring us all together to praise God. "Miguelito," she would say, squeezing me tight. "The Blessed Virgin always protects us. She watches over all Mexicans, especially good children. Never forget that, my son." My father, Don Roberto Herrera, had a tiny grocery shop in the heart of Tepic. He was a guy of unflinching integrity who awoke every morning at 6 a.m. to launch his store. He offered sweets, drink, cigarettes, and basic supplies to the neighborhood's residents. He was respected by all of his neighbors. I was just like any other youngster. I played soccer on the street with my mates. I attended the Catholic school in the village. On weekends, I assisted my father at the business. On Sundays, the whole family attended Mass, and my mother always brought me to the picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe to pray for her protection. "Virgin," she instructed me to pray, "watch over my family, my dad, my mom, and help me be a good boy." Everything changed on my 16th birthday. The date was February 3, 2004. My father had opened his store early that day, as he always does. But about 11 a.m., 3 guys appeared in a black vehicle. They were murderers from the Jalisco New Generation cartel. At the time, I had no knowledge about cartels or drug trafficking. They requested that my father pay a monthly protection levy of 5,000 pesos to continue operating his firm. My dad declined. "Gentlemen," he answered with the dignity of an honest man, "I work hard to support my family. I don't have any money to give you. If you want something from my shop, buy it. But I won't pay to be extorted." The murderers departed that day, but they returned a week later. We discovered my father laying on the pavement in front of his business, a gunshot in his skull and a message that said, "This is what happens when you don't comply with the corporation." He had 17 bullet wounds in his body. They had shot him like an animal. That night, at the wake, standing in front of my father's coffin, I yelled at my mother in front of all the neighbors, "Where was your Virgin Mary when they murdered my father? God, where were you when we needed you the most? Your religion is pointless." My mother grieved quietly, but I had made a life-changing decision. If God wasn't going to defend my family, I would do it myself. My mother gave me a medal of the Virgin of Guadalupe on the day I graduated as a private, saying, "So that she will protect you, my son, so that no harm will come to you." I took it from her hands, looked at it for a moment, and threw it in the trash that night. I joined the army at the age of 18, not to serve Mexico, but to avenge my father. I wanted drug traffickers to pay with their blood for what they had done to my family. I was ruthless, cold, and calculated, a true killing machine. My supervisor soon elevated me and gave me the moniker the Wolf, because I pursued drug dealers like they were wild animals. But I also became the deadliest adversary of religious belief. Every time we visited a property where a cartel had operated, we discovered little shrines with pictures of saints, virgins, and most importantly, Santa Muerte. Drug dealers are often superstitious. They pray before taking a life, asking for heavenly protection before carrying out their atrocities. We also discovered family chapels to the Virgin of Guadalupe, where innocent families sought protection from violence. Damned superstition, I would tell my guys as I kicked the pictures. Look at how nicely that worked. They've all died. Their saints did not protect them from anything. When a buddy crossed himself before a perilous assignment, I would taunt him loudly in front of everyone. Trust your weapon, not ghosts. Trust your training above old wives' tales. Corporal Rodriguez, my greatest buddy and comrade in arms for 5 years, usually carried a little icon of the Virgin of Guadalupe on his military helmet. He was an amazing soldier, courageous and devoted, who had saved my life 3 times, yet his religion bothered me much. During an equipment check, I took it off and stomped on it in front of the whole platoon. "Sergeant," he said with tears in his eyes, "my grandmother gave it to me before I left. It was all I had left of her. She gave it to me to protect me in war. Your grandmother is dead, Rodriguez. And if you continue to trust pieces of paper instead of your military training, you won't be here much longer either." That night, he cried silently on his cot, but I didn't feel a smidgen of regret. My heart had turned into stone. My teammates grew to dread me as much as they admired me. I was successful in killing adversaries and directing activities, but I destroyed my own men's hope and trust. When the relatives of dead soldiers arrived at the funerals and talked about how God had called them home for a cause, I coldly interrupted. God did not call anybody home. He was hit by an enemy bullet because he wasn't swift or clever enough. I was known as Sergeant Tay throughout the battalion. New recruits were previously told that there would be no religious discussions, no prayer before a mission, and no miracles, simply military discipline, continual training, and controlled and effective brutality. Over the course of 8 years, I became known as one of Sinaloa's most dreaded sergeants in the war against drug trafficking. I was involved in the capture of 15 key lieutenants from various cartels. I had captured massive amounts of narcotics, whole arsenals, and armored vehicles. My operations were executed with surgical perfection. But my military victory was accompanied by a spiritual bitterness that developed with each day. Every religious picture I saw emphasized the futility of faith. All soldiers who prayed. Everything changed on March 15, 2019. Military intelligence revealed that Joaquin El Perro Salazar, a notorious Sinaloa cartel officer, was hiding at a fortified property in the foothills outside Culiacan. This monster had murdered an entire family the week before. A father, mother, and 3 children under the age of 10, all because the father was an army informant. The task seemed to be simple. Capture or neutralize El Perro and utterly disband his killing group. I was heading a convoy of 15 special troops in 3 armored vehicles. We had successfully completed this surgery hundreds of times in prior years. We departed the military installation around morning. The light was barely peeking over the mountains when we started our push into enemy territory. My soldiers were apprehensive because information suggested that El Perro was guarded by more than 50 well-armed murderers. But I felt very certain. We have been through tougher crises in the past. "Stay calm," I said, painstakingly inspecting my M4 weapon and communications equipment. "Today we're going to make those bastards pay for what they did to that innocent family." Corporal Rodriguez, who had managed to get another little icon of the Virgin Mary to replace the one I had trodden on, crossed himself quietly before entering the armored vehicle. This time I said nothing to him. Something within me which I couldn't grasp or articulate was holding me back. The path to the mountains was exceedingly perilous, with steep, deadly twists, deep ravines hundreds of feet below, and dense foliage that could easily hide hundreds of well-positioned adversaries. After years of operating in the region, we knew these mountain routes like the back of our hands. At least that's what we assumed. During the journey, I went over the operation plan one last time. We planned to encircle the ranch from 3 separate ways, eliminate the perimeter guards, and then attack the main structure, where El Perro was said to be hiding. It was a textbook strategy that we had carried out dozens of times with great success. Strange things started happening about 5 kilometers from the property. The birds stopped singing. The wind calmed down totally. There was an eerie stillness in the mountains that made me nervous, but I didn't say anything to my guys. And then everything devolved into hell in the most horrific manner conceivable. The initial explosion entirely destroyed the lead car. An RPG launched from the bluffs destroyed the armored truck carrying 5 of my finest soldiers: Lieutenant Morales, Corporal Vasquez, Privates Ruiz, Gonzalez, and Martinez. The boom was so loud and deafening that my ears instantly began bleeding, and I lost partial hearing for many minutes. Ambush, ambush! I urgently cried into the military radio, but it was too late for any defensive measures. More than 50 assassins appeared from the bush, like demons from hell. They had higher positions, were expertly coordinated, possessed high-caliber guns and grenade launchers, and outnumbered us 3-1. Bullets showered down from every angle like terrible hail. My vehicle's reinforced windshield shattered like a spider web under the steady and sustained onslaught. "Sergeant!" yelled Private Morales from the back seat. "They have fully encircled us. There is no way out." The second armored vehicle detonated when a grenade launcher struck the gasoline tank directly. The explosion was so powerful that it lifted the whole car off the ground and destroyed it. Corporal Jimenez, together with Privates Fernandez, Lopez, and Sanchez, flew into pieces. These were young guys between the ages of 19 and 20, with girlfriends waiting for them at home and moms praying for them every night in front of icons of the Virgin of Guadalupe. In a couple of seconds, my platoon of 15 top troops was reduced to just 6 survivors. All of them were injured and scared. "Sergeant Herrera." Corporal Rodriguez's frantic, broken voice came over the radio between static and agonizing moans. "I'm seriously injured. I can't move my legs. Please assist me." I turned to where the second smash truck had landed and saw him. My dearest buddy, my brother in arms, my comrade from 5 years of battle, was lying in the mangled, burning ruins of the armored vehicle, his face covered with blood. He had a piece of metal stuck in his chest, and his legs had been crushed by the weight of the overturned truck. "Maintain your position," I yelled at the guys who were still alive. "Keep firing. I'm going to grab Rodriguez." I dashed out under heavy and prolonged enemy fire. The bullets whizzed so near to my head that I could feel the heat from the metal. One grazed my left shoulder, taking away a substantial piece of skin. Another cut a big bleeding gash on my left face. But I was able to approach Rodriguez, who was dying. "Sergeant, I believe they got me this time." "Don't say that, Rodriguez. We'll get you out of here like we always do, brother." But as I saw the full nature of his injuries, I realized I was lying terribly. His chest was open like a scarlet flower, and he was leaking blood much too rapidly. His lungs were punctured. I attempted to move him out of the firing zone, but another RPG detonated a few meters away from us. The shock wave slammed me brutally into a jagged rock, and I lost consciousness for a few seconds that seemed like hours of hell. I awoke with blood gushing into my eyes and a terrible ringing in my ears. Rodriguez didn't move or breathe. My brother, the guy who had accompanied me on 30 risky missions, saved my life 3 times, and carried images of his 2 young children in his helmet, was laying there, his blood staining the Virgin Mary like a mute testimony to my evil and hubris. The murderers approached, roaring like savage creatures fueled by drugs and violence. I could hear their voices clearly, filled with hatred and bloodlust. "We've got them. Finish them all off. Don't leave a single soldier alive." There were only 4 of us left. Private Morales with a bullet in his leg, Private Gutierrez with shrapnel wounds to his arm, Private Torres with an abdominal wound, and myself. We were all injured, with very little ammo and little hope of reinforcements. The blast had totally wrecked the radio, and we were miles away from any friendly base. I pulled myself painfully to a rock formation, anxiously looking for a marginally favorable defensive stance. But deep down I knew it was absolutely worthless. In a few minutes we'd all be dead. I imagined my mother receiving the devastating news that her only son had perished in the dreadful mountains of Sinaloa. I remembered all the young warriors who had perished under my leadership throughout the years. I recalled the bloodied picture of Rodriguez and how savagely I had humiliated his basic innocent faith. "Sergeant!" screamed Private Morales from a few yards distant. "I'm out of ammo and I can't protect us longer. It is the end." That was it. The end had arrived for all of us. I lay back against the hard rock, closed my eyes firmly, and for the first time in 16 years, since my father's terrible murder, I did what I had solemnly promised never to do again. My voice weakened by dread, sorrow, and the impending death, I muttered, "God, I know I have no right to beg for anything. I am quite aware that I have always been a jerk. I know I've humiliated you, stomped on your mother, and damaged my men's faith. But if you really exist somewhere, please, I beg you, don't let these innocent young people die because of me." Tears streamed down my dirty cheeks, mixing with the blood from my wounds. "Holy Virgin," I continued desperately, suddenly remembering my mother's tender words. "My mother always told me that you protect all your Mexican children, no matter what happens to me, but these soldiers, they believe in you with pure faith. Please save them. I beg you." Why? It was the most desperate, sincere, and humble prayer of my entire adult life. And at that precise moment, something completely changed in the air of the Sinaloa mountains. I opened my eyes slowly and couldn't believe what I was seeing. About 20 meters away from where I was standing, walking calmly amid the bullets as if she were strolling through a peaceful garden in spring, was a young woman dressed in a bright blue coat that seemed to radiate its own light. She had a beauty that was definitely not of this world, and her eyes radiated a peace and unconditional love that I had never seen in any human being. At first, I honestly thought I was hallucinating due to massive blood loss and the trauma of combat. But then I noticed something that was absolutely impossible from a scientific or military standpoint. Where she walked, enemy bullets inexplicably deflected, as if an invisible, impenetrable shield protected her. The killer's bullets changed course and crashed harmlessly against the rocks. "Can you see her?" I shouted to my surviving soldiers. "Sergeant," Morales replied in a completely trembling voice. "There's a young woman walking straight towards the killers, and they're not shooting her. It's as if they can't see her." I wasn't crazy. I wasn't hallucinating. We could all see her perfectly clearly. The mysterious woman slowly approached the 5 killers closest to our position, who were brutal men armed with AK-47s and ready to execute us. The 5 stayed immobile, as if they had seen a ghost, but not out of fear, but out of awe and utter respect. "What's going on here?" I mumbled to myself, unable to absorb what my eyes were seeing. The lady in the blue coat looked me in the eye. Despite the distance, I could see her eyes with perfect clarity, as if she were inches from my face. Her eyes were full of maternal compassion, unconditional forgiveness, and pure love. Then, without moving her lips, I clearly heard her voice inside my head, soft as a lullaby. "Get up, Miguel, it's time to go home to your family." Suddenly, as if someone had flipped a giant switch, the gunfire stopped completely. The silence was so deep that I could hear my own heart beat. "Now!" I yelled to my wounded men. "Move, this is our only chance." I hoisted Rodriguez's lifeless body onto my shoulders, and we ran desperately toward a mountain trail that I am absolutely certain did not exist 5 minutes earlier. It was as if the mountain itself had miraculously opened up to offer us an escape route. We ran for 3 exhausting hours, carrying our wounded and Rodriguez's body. The path wound through the mountain in a way that defied all topographic. During a break, Private Morales, who was limping badly, said to me, "Sergeant, this is a miracle. Statistically, militarily, we shouldn't be alive right now." He was absolutely right. When we finally reached the main road, where a patrol picked us up, I looked back toward the mountains where the miracle had occurred. For a moment, I swear on my father's memory that I saw a female figure dressed in blue on the highest peaks, watching us with a mother's love. But when the commander who rescued us couldn't believe our story. "Sergeant Herrera," he said, "according to our intelligence, you were surrounded by more than 50 killers. How did you manage to get out alive?" I didn't know how to respond. How do you explain to a superior that the Virgin Mary just saved your life? At the military hospital, the doctors kept repeating that it was a medical miracle that we were alive. "Sergeant," Dr. Ramirez told me, "you were hit by shrapnel just inches from your heart and another piece in your neck that passed within millimeters of your carotid artery. Someone up there truly wants you alive." That night, alone in my room, I removed the blood-stained portrait of Rodriguez. I gently cleaned it and for the first time in 16 years I prayed really. "Holy Virgin," I muttered, "I'm not sure why you rescued me. I don't deserve it." Tears flowed down the repaired small picture. At that point I felt that supernatural presence again, and I heard that sweet motherly voice in my head. "Miguel, my son, I have never abandoned you. Even when you rejected me, I was there to watch after you. You now have a second opportunity. Use it wisely to benefit others." The next day I phoned my mother. When she heard my voice, she broke out crying. "My son," she sobbed. I had a dreadful dream last night that showed you in fatal peril. But I had a dream that the Virgin Mary was guarding you with her dazzling blue shawl. Her words sent shivers down my spine. I told her everything. My mother sobbed, but with appreciation. Miguel, the Virgin of Guadalupe, never leaves her Mexican children. Never. 3 months later, I made the most difficult choice of my life. I resigned from the army because I could no longer be the same soldier. My commander, General Morales, attempted to stop me. "General," I said, "I've seen things that have changed me completely. I need to find a new way to serve my country." He sighed profoundly. "Herrera, in 30 years of service, I've learned that there are some things that military manuals don't explain. I respect your decision." I returned to Tepic and started helping at a rehabilitation facility for former murderers and ex-soldiers traumatized by war. I could finally give them something powerful. Living proof that miracles exist and that it's never too late to change. One day, a 25-year-old former killer asked me, "How can you be sure God will forgive me? I killed 6 people." I showed him the picture of Rodriguez. "Brother," I said, "I hated God for 16 years, trampled on sacred images, and when I was dying, abandoned by everyone, she saved my life. If there is forgiveness for someone like me, then there is forgiven." Over the next 5 years, I directly helped more than 100 men find a new life. Today, my life is completely different. Every morning, I get up at 5 a.m., just like my mother used to recite the rosary. Last year, on the anniversary of Rodriguez's death, I returned alone to those mountains. I didn't find the path we had escaped along, as if it had never existed, but I found something even more powerful. At the exact spot where I first saw the woman My name is Miguel Herrera, and I used to be a sergeant who despised God and faith. Now I am a man who understands that miracles are not old wives' tales. They are real, powerful, and can change even the hardest of hearts. If you are going through a war, whether it is against external enemies or your own inner demons, I want you to know that you are never alone. The Blessed Virgin is there, patiently waiting for you to opt.